So I've got a question for you. Why is the White House suddenly erecting anti-scalable barricades and fencing all around the White House and even the U.S. Treasury? What do they know that we don't? Are they expecting some kind of terrorist attack? Or are they expecting some kind of protest? I mean, why are these barricades getting erected? Obviously, they're trying to prevent something from getting in. But the question is, what? Well, I've got a lot to share with you today, but as a quick reminder, please make sure you're still subscribed to this channel. Hit that sub button right here and make sure you go all the way up to check the bell. And don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Now, with that, before I get into what's going on over at the White House, I want to back up a little bit because there's things that happened prior to that that I think you should be aware of, right? I want to start with this, right? This is the National Blueprint for Biodefense, and it's subtitled Immediate Action Needed to Defend Against Biological Threats, right? What is this? Well, this is a comprehensive guide that was published back in April and May of last year, right? And it was put together by a bipartisan commission on biodefense, and it's made up of senators, governors, and experts in the field of national security and in the field of public health, right? So that's who put this together. You can see this big list of people here who are kind of involved. Again, lots of powerful people, shall we say. But what is this actual report? Well, to put it bluntly, it's a detailed, policy-oriented action plan urging our leaders to dramatically upgrade our national capabilities against biological threats, against natural threats, accidental threats, or even deliberate threats, right? These are recommendations that they are giving our leaders in the event the crap hits the fan. That's it. That's putting it very bluntly. So it's immediate action needed to defend against bio threats. What's interesting about this report is on page 3 of the document, it outlines a hypothetical scenario happening in the U.S., right? Hypothetical means this did not happen completely. Nothing happened. This is just hypothetical. And here's what it says. The following hypothetical opening remarks by the chair of the Congressional Joint Inquiry provide context for this report by portraying a bio attack sufficient to cause the catastrophic consequences warned of by the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense. In other words, the reason that they're giving this hypothetical opening in this document is to make our leaders aware that something like this could happen in our country. So here's what it says. I call this first hearing on the joint inquiry to order. 9 weeks ago, some nation or terrorist group, we still do not know who, attacked the nation's capital and other U.S. cities with a bioweapon as we celebrated Independence Day. The infection agent they used killed about 280,000 Americans and infected at least 400,000 throughout the country in a single day, in addition to the 200,000 dead and 800,000 sickened animals. These numbers will increase as the disease spreads. Many of our own colleagues and staff here in Congress fell ill and died. Coordinated attacks in allied nations in the days that followed killed tens of thousands. And now they're hearing that the terrorist attacks conducted smaller scale attacks in American cities and localities prior to July 4th incidents to test our defense and gauge our responses. These smaller scale attacks went largely unnoticed. And anyway, they go on and expand on this scenario, and they say it's laboratory confirmed it's the Nipah virus there that spread and yada yada. So very morbid. Let's be honest, it's very morbid. And hopefully nothing like that ever does happen in the United States of America. But again, that's fictional. It did not happen. And no, they're not predicting the future on July 4th, right? That's just the day that they so happen to pick in this hypothetical scenario. Okay, let's get that out of the way. So it's weird that now, come July 4th weekend, we're going to have this anti-scale fence put up around the White House. And it's interesting that this document is saying there could be an attack on the 4th of July. Again, hypothetical. But Event 201 in the past was hypothetical too. And that kind of end up, in a way, playing out a little bit, if you get my drift. I am not saying that that is happening here. In fact, I don't think anything is going to happen on the 4th of July. What I do think is that they're preparing for some kind of protests that are going to be happening. You see, just yesterday on the 28th, there was actually a protest in and around the White House. But what's interesting about the barricades that they're building is they intend to keep them there through the 4th of July. Let's get to the White House. So here we are at the White House. This is some of the fencing that they have put up, and this was published by Ben Popkin. Popkin, I think is his name. But in D.C. for a work trip, he said some new high black metal fencing went up today around the White House, Lafayette Square. A Secret Service agent told me it was for renovations to the grounds and in preparation for the 4th, right? So you see the fencing here, and then you see the fencing on the bottom. That one chills me out a little bit because technically you could electrify those right on the bottom. So what are they preparing for? Like it's truly interesting. Apparently they want to keep people within, away from a certain distance there. But you can see here's the whole fencing, and it says notice restricted area, 100% ID check on the one opening. And you could see those things on the bottom as well, but still kind of that area. This is the fencing that has gone up. And then in his post, Ben Popkin also says a sign on one of them said it would be removed by July 9th. So in other words, these barricades fully intend, according to Ben there, on staying up until the 4th, until July 9th, which means they'll be there on the 4th. And here's a video of it. And you can see this is the anti-scale ones here that you see in this clip, but they're also putting these up as well. And you can see them there being erected. So definitely a little more going on. Now, I'm not saying anything is going to happen on the 4th of July. I don't think it will. I think that we could see protests, unfortunately. And there may be some group out there doing that. But in the meantime, we still actually have a legitimate threat out there that's pretty massive, right? As a reminder here, this is NPR.org, Officials are warning of a high threat environment on U.S. soil after the strikes on Iran. Or let's go over to NYT. The FBI warns of possible retaliation by Iran after the bombing of the nuclear sites, right? Both the FBI and the DHS have put these threat assessments out. And by the way, those threat assessments that they've posted go all the way through September. I think it's like September 9th or somewhere 22nd. And I'm just recalling this from the top of my head. But the threats are still there from Iran. So Iran could have some kind of terror cell, say, here in the U.S. And thank God that our leaders are on high alert looking out for those things. But the threat is still there. Maybe Donald Trump is kind of just taking precautions. Who knows? But either way, I just find it's very interesting. Honestly, I think there's some kind of protest that they're worried about that could turn into a riot happening in and around the Capitol. But that's my assessment. That's what I think could play out in the next couple of days, because really the only reason you put these fencings up is to prevent that kind of stuff. So hopefully you get my drift. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. As a quick reminder, please sign up to restrictedrepublic.com. Look, the information you get here on YouTube, it's not really free, even though it is, because a lot of the information that you get is very controlled. They control what's out on the internet and pretty much what your ears can hear, and unless you're subscribed to some of the channels like mine and purposefully go to them and watch them, right? And so I want to encourage you to avoid all of that. Get to restrictedrepublic.com. All of the information is on there. It's commercial free, by the way, and we post exclusive content. Use the coupon code FOREVER50 to get it for $50 per year. It's a great thing to do. It's a one-time fee. There's monthly options on there as well, but you can use that coupon code and get it for $50 per year. One way you can support us too. Anyhow, with all of that, I love you all. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.